Okay, so here we are, and I just want to say welcome to the second week officially of our challenge. And I hope that you guys have been enjoying your food and you have already did your first round of food prep. Now, don't forget, as we move into week number 2, don't forget to remember everything that you learned in Food Prep 101, about planning your meals for the upcoming week, about, choosing which ingredients that you're going to put in and make that grocery list. And then plan ahead, think through your prep. Think steps that you can take in a proper order that will allow you to really have more of a smooth, streamlined process. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to kind of help you to refine your process from last week. So we're going to learn from what we already did, but I'm also going to really help you to determine how you can go from knowing nothing at all in the kitchen, being a complete novice, you have no clue what you're doing, to being completely confident in the kitchen, and you can handle absolutely anything, okay? And it's a process, and we're going to talk about what that process looks like today. But before we really jump into the content, I wanted to share something that I once heard that had such a massive impact on me at the time. And I really believe that it was because I was feeling really discouraged that day when I heard it. But you know that feeling, right? Whenever you're working so hard on yourself, you're trying to improve, but you feel like you're not making any progress. Have you ever felt that way before? You feel like maybe the progress is so incredibly slow that you're actually moving backwards. Right? I mean, it's why am I even trying? And that's really, really discouraging. Yeah. I think we've all been there on occasion. It's not a good feeling. And I was in a yoga class this one day, and I was trying to do something good for myself, but my headspace, I just was not there. And so whenever the yoga instructor shared this with me, it hit home so hard. She said, greatness happens slowly. Just hit me like a ton of bricks. What she said is that, the mighty oak tree, it starts as a tiny little sapling. And it might look measly. It might look weak at first, but under the ground, there are a whole network of roots that are building a strong foundation, even if you can't see it happening. Be patient. You're going to grow, all right? And you're already stronger than you think. This is what she told me that day, and I will never, ever forget it. And one thing that I really learned over time is that there is a secret formula to creating greatness in you. And I'm going to share that formula with you. We're going to kind of just break it down for a second. And it's attitude plus action equals results. And really, that first piece, attitude, is absolutely everything. Listen, if you don't have the right attitude, you're not going to take action in the first place, right? I mean, you have to believe in the possibilities for yourself. You have to believe that you have what it takes and that it's worthwhile. I mean, that is a perspective that you can choose to take. And if you want to continue with the metaphor of the oak tree, think of your attitude as the soil, the environment that you're growing in. And your attitude, the soil, is really your thoughts, your feelings about things, your beliefs, I already mentioned, and the things that you hear yourself say out loud. What is your attitude doing for you in this case? And you know what? If you decide to take action without the right attitude, you're going to be met with resistance. Your tree is never going to grow, basically, if you don't water it, right? But if your tree is planted in thick clay or cement, that water does absolutely nothing. Everything is going to feel so much harder for you if you are beating yourself up for making mistakes, if you let fear overtake you, And if you make excuses for yourself, and you know what, your attitude, it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. This is one thing that I want to make clear. You know, you're not going to be perfect at all. It's not possible. And I understand, I totally get it. Like, I understand how hard it can be to have a good attitude sometimes, especially when you have these underlying beliefs that are driving your behavior, driving your thoughts in the first place. So, I mean, we really just have to start bringing some awareness around what our attitude even is in the first place, by listening and paying attention to how you're acting and how you're reacting and the things that you hear yourself say. And your action, well, it doesn't have to be monumental. You know, you don't have to like do everything at once, but those tiny, tiny little steps are what are going to continue to nurture your growth and help you to continue to make progress. Now, this is exactly why, like, I do a lot of work around changing my belief systems, because I've noticed that I self-sabotage a lot. I mean, I'm sure maybe you've noticed this as well. And all of that self-sabotage, it all stems from these underlying beliefs that we have about ourselves, the underlying beliefs that we have about time, for example. Like a belief around time is, I don't have any time. That's a belief. That's not true. All right. And that's exactly what a belief is. It's something that's not true. And so we have to start to shatter those beliefs. Yeah. And so you're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to have any greatness if you don't have these two important ingredients. And so as we move forward with our training today and all the content, you know, try to go in it with the right attitude. Think about how we can approach this with the right attitude, and we're going to see what actions that we can take in order to make progress. So today I'm going to share with you 5 strategies that will help you refine your meal prep so it doesn't feel challenging. And the first one is not going to come to any surprise to you. Okay, don't do too much at once. This is not surprising. I've been talking about this all week, since we started the challenge. But if you struggled with your first round of food prep last weekend, then you might have already been a victim of this. Oh wait, I'm reading what Lisa said. Time is about what you decide is important to you. Yeah, totally. That's so true, Lisa. I mean, we do make time for whatever's important to us. You know, if exercise is something that you value and you find important, you're going to exercise. And if eating good food is important to you, you're going to find time for it. So thank you so much for pointing that out. But what I want to keep reiterating to you is that it's so important that, like, we don't do too much at once. So you have to start so small with this food prep that you know you can't fail. Because sometimes, like, we'll try to bite off more than we can chew without even realizing it until, like, you're in the midst and you feel like you need like 10 different hands in order to get it all done in the kitchen. You have to start somewhere though, right? Everyone starts somewhere. And over time, you're going to be able to do a little bit more, you know, but that growth, it is slow. So we got to have patience through this whole process. For your first few times prepping though, choose meals and recipes that don't involve a lot of chopping, a lot of preparation, because this is how you're going to make it a lot easier for yourself. So don't figure out how to cut a spaghetti squash, how to peel ginger, how to chop a whole head of cauliflower if you've never done any of those things before. You know, don't try and do all of that in one day. You're going to be really overwhelmed. So here's a couple of practical suggestions. Start with simple recipes like a roast. A roast in the crock pot or in the oven is really hard to mess up. You could do whole potatoes, like a whole sweet potato in the oven. So like there's really not a lot of preparation. All you have to do is scrub that potato off. Or frozen veggies that are already washed and cut and ready to go. Choose recipes that use minimal ingredients so you don't have all kinds of things to purchase and add into your recipe. And consider like one-pot meals so you don't have a ton of dishes all over the place. All right, and this is the way that you're really gonna like keep it from being too overwhelming. So did you feel like your food prep was overwhelming the first time? And if you did, think about why. it felt that way. This is really important, you guys. Like, this is how we're going to refine our process, by reflecting, you know, asking yourself the right questions. So we're going to start to hash this stuff out. Why did you feel like your food prep was overwhelming? If it was, feel free to share in the comments. Sandy said it was better than she thought it would be. That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. But if it was, I mean, was it a certain veggie that you fumbled around trying to chop? Maybe you had too many pots and pans out, so cleanup was an absolute disaster for you. Or maybe you just like kept getting lost in your recipe because you chose a recipe that was really complicated, and so you kind of losing your spot, and it felt like it took a really long time. There are a lot of different reasons why it might have felt overwhelming, and you should really pinpoint what that is for you, because we're all going to have a different experience, right? Pre-cut onions is a great idea, Jen. I hate cutting onions, but you know, once you kind of get the hang of it, it's really quite easy. But yeah, some things just really take a long time at first, and it makes it feel difficult. We have to make it feel as easy as possible for ourselves, though, right? Or else we're not going to keep doing it. So my second strategy that I have for you today is to have the right tools. Having the right tools is going to make your life so much easier, because you can speed things up, you can prep things hands off, and you can reduce the amount of time it takes you to clean up. So I'm going to share with you a couple of my favorite tools. And hopefully you will take some suggestions from here, maybe give you some good ideas. But if you have a specific tool from your kitchen that you like to use, I would like to hear what that is as well. So my list is not inclusive. You might have some things in your kitchen that you like to use too, so feel free to share so that we can, you know, share some ideas together. But of course, the very first one is the crock pot. You can probably guess that by the image here. You've heard me talk about freezer meals, and I gave you some freezer meal recipes as well. But they have been an absolute game changer in my house. I actually started doing my freezer meals when I was pregnant with my daughter. I stocked my freezer with 3 months worth of freezer meals before she was born. But I quickly realized how much easier my life was when I had a freezer meal on hand. Because when I didn't have a plan for dinner, all of a sudden, I could just pull a freezer meal out of the freezer, let it defrost overnight, and boom, dinner is instantly done already just by putting in my crock pot and pressing a button. It is so beautiful to not have to do a thing during the day and have a delicious meal at the end of the day. And I also just love how tender my meat comes out, just falls apart. And I also love to make soups, stews, sauces, and curries in my crock pot. But there's there are a lot of other things you can do, like make desserts. I highly recommend that, of course. You can make oats, homemade applesauce. There's so much you can do with a crock pot. The next one is electric steamer. Now, whenever you have a few things cooking on the stove too, it's really nice to have a countertop appliance. That way you can save some space on your stove so you can cook other things. But this also helps you to be completely hands-off with the steamer, because you can press a button and it will shut itself off when it's finished, so you don't have to worry about overcooking your food if you accidentally forget about it. But the other really great thing about a steamer is that it actually keeps the nutrients intact in your vegetables. So steaming vegetables comes with health benefits as well. The next tool I have for you is the Instant Pot. Now, this is one that I was actually really afraid of at first. I got an Instant Pot and I didn't even want to use it. I was completely intimidated by it, which a lot of people are, but I have learned to love it, and it really is my favorite kitchen tool now. I love it because it has so many different uses. You can use it as a crock pot, as a steamer. You can use it as a pressure cooker, and you can also saute in it. I've also used it to make homemade yogurt once upon a time whenever I wasn't cutting dairy out. But I love today to use it to steam whole sweet potatoes very quickly, make baby potatoes. I make quinoa, long grain brown rice, and steel cut oats. You know, things that take a long time to cook on top of the stove, and you're constantly stirring and checking on it and making sure it's not boiling over. Well, in the Instant Pot, it happens so fast and you don't even have to think about it. I love it. So yeah, Lisa, I highly suggest the Instant Pot. But like I said, it can be intimidating. There's actually a lot of groups on Facebook that you can become a part of. So if you ever have questions or concerns, or if you need cool Instant Pot ideas, you can join an Instant Pot group online, which is cool. Okay, so finally, consider other smaller useful tools, okay? So like a food processor, for example. It will help you to dice vegetables like onions and stuff very quickly, as long as you don't mind it being diced very small. I also use a food processor to whip up some sauces and salad dressings and different things like that. Veggie spiralizer is one that I don't use very often, but when I do, I'm really happy I have it. So I make my zucchini noodles and different type of raw veggie noodle salads using a veggie spiralizer. It's also kind of fun. And then the julienne slicer is another one that really comes in handy for specialized things. Like I make zucchini chips, sweet potato chips. I also like to slice my carrots nice and thin for on my salads. There's a lot of different things you can do with the julienne slicer, and it saves so much time and frustration trying to slice things super thin. And finally, a garlic crusher is one of my favorites, just because garlic goes good in everything that's a savory dish. And the garlic crusher is so fast and simple, and there's easy cleanup, and your hands don't smell like garlic from trying to mince that garlic up. All right, and Sandy says she loves her blender for smoothies. Yes, me too. My Vitamix, I should have put that one on the list. My Vitamix is seriously life. I love it. I use it for so many things. Worth every single penny. All right, so this is the thing, you guys. You don't have to go out and buy all of these appliances all at once. You know, I'm not saying that you need all of these things, but if you're finding that cooking everything on the stove is time consuming and messy and daunting, then maybe consider a countertop appliance that will help make your life easier. And if you feel like you're dicing and chopping for days and it's just taking so much time, then these other small useful tools will really help cut down on the amount of time you're chopping vegetables. Yes. Lisa, I do know a bunch of people that do the minced garlic in a jar. I just think it's a little more cost effective to get the bulbs of garlic, and they last so much longer. Whenever I've gotten the pre-minced garlic before, I've ended up letting some of it go to waste, unfortunately, and then it's just a big waste of money. So sometimes it's just kind of a give or take. Like I mentioned in our last training, that you have to choose the balance between cost and convenience, and that minced garlic definitely is convenient. All right, so my third strategy for you is seriously the most important one in my mind, okay? Because this is all about time. And if you feel like time is an issue, listen up, okay? This is my secret sauce, my #1 secret to making food prep a breeze. Let's say you do your grocery shopping on Friday, and you're not planning on doing your food prep until Sunday. There's a chance that you might be able to find yourself with 5 or 10 minutes here or there between Friday and Sunday where you can just get one little thing done. Okay, so take a moment and actually ask yourself that same question, like where can you find 5 or 10 minutes in your day? Okay, if you don't ask this question, you won't get an answer. One thing I teach to my students often is that we have to start asking better questions to get better results, right? And so by asking yourself, where can I? You know, if I did have 5 minutes, where would it be? Rather than just going right off the bat saying, I don't have time. There's not enough time, and repeating those things. Remember what we talked about in the beginning about having an attitude, having beliefs around time. You know, what are you hearing yourself say about time? If you're hearing yourself say, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, you're not going to have enough time. So listen, this is what it comes down to. It's just like finding little tiny pockets where you can do tiny tasks, like chop a pepper and put it back in a container and put it in the fridge if it's something you're going to need for a recipe. You could peel something or wash a little bit of your produce. This has been such a game changer for me, especially since I've started using my juicer. I make fresh homemade green juice every weekend. And preparing my vegetables for the juicer is really the most time-consuming part. So what I'll do is I will like peel my ginger, which is the most time-consuming part, peel my ginger 2 or 3 days before I even do my juicing. And I'll wrap it up and put it in the fridge. And then one day while my daughter is eating her lunch, I'll peel my carrots. And then maybe right before I go to bed, I'll wash my cucumber and wash my celery and pop it back in the fridge. And then when I get up in the morning, everything's ready to go and I can just go right into my juicing. And what this does is it literally saves me 30 to 45 minutes of time on that same day whenever I'm doing my juicing or my food prep. Okay, so think about how you can stay one step ahead. All right, just be more prepared for your prep so everything feels a little easier. And another way that you can prep for your prep is by getting all of your ingredients, chopped and measured before you start cooking. So you can prep on the same day, prep for your prep on the same day. And what this does is it makes things feel easier in so many ways, because what will happen is you'll be like sauteing your chicken on the stove when you realize that you needed to have an onion diced, and then you're frantically trying to chop that onion up while your chicken is burning on the stove, and it gets really stressful really quickly. But what if you could have everything ready? You might actually enjoy cooking. Believe it or not, it is possible, okay? And we have to have this belief, okay? We have to tell ourselves that it is possible. Anything is possible. And enjoying cooking, no matter where you're starting today, it's possible for you. Food prep doesn't have to be stressful. Okay, so my next strategy for you is to do what you're good at. We have a lot of resistance around things that we're not good at. And that's because no one wants to feel incapable, right? No one wants to feel like a failure. That's why I keep reiterating, just to do what you know you can do so you cannot fail. And, we also kind of have to have that attitude of, we're just going to see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, don't have those high expectations for yourself. That's where we also get ourselves into a lot of trouble. But look, what if you don't feel like there's anything that you're good at? That's a possibility. You might have this fear inside of you of trying anything in the first place. That fear, it can be really gripping, like it will stop you in your tracks even if you really, really want to change. So I want to remind you something again that we're talking about. This is going to be like the through line through everything about having the right attitude. It first comes down to the attitude you choose. Overcoming that first fear of cooking for yourself, that's the hardest one. But realize that it's going to get easier. That fear is not going to be as gripping the second time. It's going to be even less gripping the third time. So what if you chose the perspective of, well, I'm just going to do my best and see what happens, instead of like, I can't do this. And if you say I can't do this, you won't be able to do this. So ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? I like doing that little thought experiment. Like if you go through your head, like, what is the worst possible outcome here? It's really not that bad, right? So just give it a shot. So what if your attitude was, I'm going to do whatever it takes, instead of, I will never be able to make this work? It's a big difference. Yes, Lisa, you got this down. You also believe that attitude is the key. It really is. We got to check our attitude once in a while, because those attitudes become automatic, because they come from those deeply ingrained beliefs. So whenever you have a bad attitude, sometimes you don't even realize it unless we shine a little flashlight on it and say, like, what are we really thinking and feeling, right? So maybe like think about something you've done in the past that you were good at. Is there one recipe that you can't mess up? What I want you to do is cook that same recipe every single week until it becomes second nature to you, okay? Every single week you're going to get better and better, and what's going to happen is you're going to zip through the grocery store and know exactly where to find every ingredient that you need. And whenever you actually do the cooking, you're not going to have to look at the recipe at all. You're going to be able to do it on autopilot. You get so good at something through repetition, all right? And repetition is what builds confidence. And I know some of you might say, well, I don't want to eat the same thing every week, Vanessa. Well, that's okay. Maybe alternate between 2 different recipes for a little while and recognize that it's going to take you just a tad bit longer to get that confidence and to get really, really good at that one recipe or those 2 recipes. Anyway, so stick with the same thing and it's going to continue to get easier. And prove to yourself with simple recipes that it can become easy. Because once you have that proof, then you know you can move forward and do it again. All right. And, only after you have really mastered 1 or 2 recipes should you move on to my 5th strategy, and that is to layer in new skills over time. Sandy says, check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's exactly right. We're definitely going to crash and burn if we don't check ourselves, right? I mean, that, like I said in the beginning, that action you're taking, it's just going to be so hard. It's like driving with the parking brake on, like that's what this is going to feel like to you if you don't check what's going on between these 2 ears of yours, right? Okay, so after you feel confident, you're going to start layering in new skills. And this is how you're going to expand your food prep over time, to maybe be able to do not just 1 recipe, but all of your recipes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe to feed your whole family. And this is also how you're going to learn new recipes over time. But you gotta take it 1 little baby step at a time, 1 skill at a time. And recognize, again, that every new skill you add in, it's gonna feel a little hard at first. You're gonna move a little slower the first time you do this new skill. And it might take you a little longer to do. So through repetition, though, you're gonna be able to make that new skill part of your repertoire, okay? And this is how we get better. So some examples, chop a new kind of veggie. You could use a new kitchen tool that you've never used before, or try a whole new recipe. Maybe experiment with different types of seasonings, or create your own recipe of some sort. That would really be kind of taking a leap outside of the box, right? And look, if you mess something up, just don't hold that heavy weight of expectation over yourself. You just fall back on the things that you are good at. Remind yourself that you are good at something. So don't let that discouragement start to creep into your food prep. Again, check yourself with how you're responding and reacting with your thoughts and your feelings. So you will use this as proof that says, like, yes, I can do this. Yes, I've done it before, and I'm going to move forward and keep going. You gradually build on your skills. One day, you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, wow, I'm a really good cook. How did that happen? Okay, but it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a week or a month. But at this time next year, you're going to look back and say, dang, I'm so glad that I started working on this important part of me, because it has been paying off tremendously. Remember, greatness happens slowly. And you will be great at this one day, believe me. So just to summarize, 5 keys. Number 1, don't do too much at once. Just choose something super simple, you guys, and just keep it as simple as possible. Just do 1 recipe again this week if you're not really sure if you're going to be able to handle more than 1. And have the right tools too. Don't be afraid to try new tools, even though it can be intimidating at first. You can really cut down on time and clean up this way. And prep for your prep. This is my secret sauce, you guys. I hope that you take this one into serious consideration, because time is the number 1 thing that keeps people from doing their food prep. And this really just can bust down all of those barriers of time that are holding you back. Do what you're good at and keep repeating that thing over and over and over again. If you're not good at anything yet, you know what? Just start somewhere and start small. And then layer in those skills 1 at a time and take your time. Okay, 1 new skill might take you a week, 2 weeks, or even a month to really, really master and get the hang of. So I am really looking forward to seeing how you guys do with your prep this weekend. We're going to be in the group. I want you to share what recipes you're going to be cooking this weekend, and definitely make sure that you keep checking back because I have a couple of other really great tips and ideas for you. And then next week, we're going to celebrate, okay? I cannot wait to finish this challenge with you. Thank you for being here, and that is all we have for today. I didn't want to take more than 30 minutes of your time, and we did it just under 30 minutes. Thank you so much. I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. See ya.